I want a divorce. This marriage isn't working anymore.
How? I don't understand.
We've grown apart. It's better if we end it now.
Grown apart? Minjae, I asked you this morning if we were okay. You said we were fine.
I lied.
To understand how we got here, we must take you back to where it all began. The champagne glass shattered against marble with a sound that echoed through the penthouse like a gunshot. Kang Min-jae stood at the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline, his reflection a ghost against the city he'd conquered. Behind him, his wife of 5 years picked up the pieces without a word, her dark hand steady, even as blood bloomed from a tiny cut on her finger. "Leave it," he said, his voice flat. "The staff will handle it in the morning." Amara Collins Kang straightened, meeting his eyes in the glass. "The staff doesn't arrive until 7. Someone could get hurt." That was Amara, always thinking of others, even when her husband couldn't be bothered to turn around and look at her. Min-jae's jaw tightened as he watched her wrap a tissue around her finger, watched the grace with which she moved despite the late hour, despite his coldness, despite everything. She wore one of his favorite dresses tonight, the deep burgundy one that made her skin glow like polished mahogany. She'd done her hair the way he used to like it, natural curls framing her face. She'd waited for him to come home from yet another late meeting, had dinner ready, had smiled when he walked in, and he'd barely acknowledged her existence. "How was the charity board meeting?" she asked, depositing the glass shards carefully into the trash. "Productive." He took another sip of whiskey, his third since arriving home. "We finalized the hospital wing donation. Your idea about the pediatric art therapy program was well received." A small smile touched her lips. "I'm glad. Those kids need creative outlets, especially during treatment." Silence stretched between them like an ocean. Once, he would have turned around, pulled her close, told her how brilliant she was. Once, her ideas had been their ideas, her dreams woven into his ambitions so seamlessly he couldn't remember whose was whose. But that was before the empire grew too large, before the whispers started, before Han Soo-jin came back into his life, carrying secrets that could destroy everything he'd built. Amara moved to the kitchen, and he heard the quiet sounds of her making tea. Even now, she maintained the rituals that had sustained their marriage through the brutal early years. When he was building Kang Industries from nothing, when they lived in a one-bedroom apartment in Gangnam and ate ramyeon 4 nights a week, she'd made tea every night before bed. Green tea for him, chamomile for her. She'd given up her position as an emerging art curator in New York to follow him to Seoul, had learned Korean, had navigated a business culture that looked at her with curiosity at best and hostility at worst. "You're the most beautiful woman in any room," he'd told her on their wedding day, speaking in English so his mother wouldn't understand. "And the strongest. I don't deserve you, but I'll spend my life trying to." That was 6 years ago. He was 31 then, hungry and determined, but not yet, hardened. She was 27, full of fire and dreams, and a love so fierce it had terrified him even then. She'd looked at him like he hung the moon, and he'd believed that together they could weather anything. He'd been wrong. "Min-jae." Amara's voice pulled him from his thoughts. She stood in the doorway holding 2 cups, her expression unreadable. "We need to talk." His stomach twisted. Those 4 words, in any language, in any marriage, meant trouble. But instead of asking what was wrong, instead of reaching for her the way every cell in his body screamed at him to do, he checked his watch. "It's late, Amara. Can it wait until morning?" Something flickered across her face, hurt, maybe, or disappointment. But she nodded, setting his tea on the table beside his whiskey. "Of course. Sleep well." She was halfway to their bedroom when his phone buzzed. A message from Soo-jin. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. My attorney will have the documents ready. Don't be late, Min-jae. You know what's at stake." His hands trembled as he deleted the message. Tomorrow. tomorrow everything would change, and the woman currently removing her earrings in their bedroom had no idea that in less than 24 hours, he would hand her divorce papers and destroy the only real thing he'd ever built. The next morning arrived with cruel efficiency. Amara was already awake when Minjai's alarm sounded at 5:30, sitting at the kitchen island with her laptop open, reviewing gallery contracts from her freelance consulting work. She'd never fully given up on art, even when his business consumed 90% of her time, even when Seoul's high society expected her to be nothing more than decorative. "Coffee's ready," she said without looking up. "And I picked up those almond croissants you like from the French bakery." He should have known then, should have recognized that she was trying, that despite his increasing distance, despite the rumors she must have heard about Soo-jin's return, she was still fighting for their marriage. But cowardice has a way of blinding men to the best things in their lives. "I have an early meeting," he'd lied, grabbing his briefcase. "Don't wait up tonight." "Minjai?" Her voice stopped him at the door. When he turned, her dark eyes searched his face with an intensity that made him want to confess everything. "Are we okay?" The question hung in the air like smoke. He could tell her now. Could explain about Soo-jin's blackmail, about the documents she had from his early business dealings, the ones that proved his first major contract had been secured through methods that, while not technically illegal, would destroy his reputation and tank Kang Industries' stock price. He could tell Amara that Soo-jin wanted him back, that she'd waited 7 years to return to Korea with enough ammunition to force his hand, that the price of his empire's survival was their marriage. Instead, he said, "We're fine. Just stressed with the merger." The merger. Another lie. There was no merger, just a desperate man trying to convince himself that sacrificing love for power was the only choice he had. Amara nodded slowly, but her expression said she didn't believe him. "Okay. I love you." The words were a knife to his chest. "Love you too." He left before she could say anything else, before the guilt could paralyze him completely. The law office where Soo-jin waited was in Gangnam, all glass and steel and modern minimalism. She sat in the conference room like a queen holding court, her designer suit perfectly pressed, her hair styled in the sleek bob she'd always favored. At 33, she was as beautiful as he remembered, but there was a hardness around her eyes now, a calculating coldness that had never been there when they dated in university. "Minjae," she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Right on time. I appreciate punctuality." He sat across from her, his attorney beside him looking uncomfortable. "Let's get this over with." Soo-jin slid a folder across the table. "Divorce papers for you and Amara. Filed quietly, citing irreconcilable differences. A generous settlement for her. $50 million should ease the sting. In exchange, she signs an NDA and disappears from Korean business circles." "Amara will never take the money," he said, even though part of him hoped she would. It would make this easier, somehow, if she proved to be like everyone else. "Then she's even more foolish than I thought." Soo-jin's smile sharpened. "You married beneath you, Minjai. Everyone knows it. A black American, nobody with no family connections, no business value. What were you thinking?" Rage flooded through him so suddenly he saw red. "Watch your mouth." "Or what? You'll refuse to sign and let me destroy everything you've built." She leaned forward. "I have the emails, Minjai. I have the proof that you bribed those city officials for the Hanam development contract. I have the evidence that will send you to prison and reduce Kang Industries to rubble. All I want in return is what should have been mine 7 years ago. You. You left me," he said through gritted teeth. "You chose to study in Paris instead of staying. You made your choice. And I'm correcting that mistake now." She stood, smoothing her skirt. "You have 48 hours to serve Amara the papers. If you don't, I go public. It's quite simple, really." He wanted to flip the table, wanted to tell her to go to hell, wanted to choose Amara and face whatever consequences came. But the fear was too strong. Fear of losing his company, his reputation, everything he'd clawed his way up from poverty to achieve. He was the son of a factory worker and a seamstress, the first in his family to attend university, the first to build something that mattered. Kong Industries employed 3,000 people. 3,000 families depended on him. At least, that's what he told himself as he took the folder and left without another word. Amorafor was in the garden when he arrived home that evening, tending to the roses she'd planted their first spring in the penthouse. She wore old jeans and a faded Columbia University t-shirt, dirt smudged on her cheek, looking more beautiful than any woman in a ball gown. The late afternoon sun caught the gold in her wedding ring as she pruned dead blooms, humming softly to herself. He stood in the doorway watching her, memorizing this moment. Tomorrow, he would destroy this. Tomorrow, this garden would belong to someone else, and Amara would be gone, and he would have chosen power over the only person who'd ever loved him when he had nothing. "You're home early," she said, glancing up with surprise. "Everything okay?" Nothing was okay. Nothing would ever be okay again. "Amara, come inside. We need to talk." She must have heard something in his voice because her expression shifted, became guarded. She set down the pruning shears and followed him into the living room, still wearing her gardening gloves, as if she knew she'd want armor for whatever came next. He'd rehearsed this, had planned to be cold, efficient, to rip the bandage off quickly. But when she sat across from him, when those intelligent eyes met his with a mixture of concern and love, the words died in his throat. "Min-jae, you're scaring me." "What's wrong?" He placed the envelope on the coffee table between them. "I want a divorce." Silence. Amara stared at the envelope like it was a snake, her face draining of color. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "What?" "I want a divorce," he repeated, hating himself more with each word. "This marriage isn't working anymore. We've grown apart. It's better if we end it now, cleanly." She removed her gardening gloves slowly, her hands trembling. "Grown apart? Min-jae, I asked you this morning if we were okay. You said we were fine." "I lied." The words hit her like a physical blow. He watched her flinch, watched her wrap her arms around herself as if trying to hold her breaking heart inside her chest. "Is there someone else?" she asked. "Yes." "No, it's complicated. None of the answers would help." "That's not relevant." "Not relevant?" Her voice rose, anger finally breaking through the shock. "I'm your wife. I gave up my career, my country, my entire life to support you. I learned a new language, navigated a culture that sees me as an outsider at best, faced racism and xenophobia so you could build your empire without distractions. And you're telling me whether you're fucking someone else isn't relevant?" He'd never heard her curse before. In 5 years of marriage, through all the stress and pressure, she'd maintained a grace that had awed him. Seeing her composure crack was worse than any accusation. "There's a settlement offer in the envelope, $50 million. You'll be comfortable." Amara laughed, a broken, bitter sound. "You think I want your money? You think I married you for wealth?" She stood, pacing. "I married you when you had nothing, Min-jae. When we ate convenience store meals and shared a bathroom with 3 other tenants. I married you because you were brilliant and kind, and you looked at me like I was your whole world. What happened to that man?" He wanted to tell her that man died the moment he realized his empire was built on quicksand, that one wrong move could topple everything, that he was weak and terrified and choosing survival over love. But instead, he said, "People change." "No." She stopped in front of him, her eyes blazing. "People don't change this much without a reason. Tell me the truth. Tell me why you're really doing this." He couldn't. If he told her about Soo Jin's blackmail, she'd fight. She'd want to stand beside him, face the scandal together. And he couldn't let her sacrifice any more for him. "I don't love you anymore," he said, forcing the words past the knot in his throat. "I'm sorry, but I don't. It was the cruelest lie he'd ever told, and he watched it destroy her. Amara stumbled backward as if he'd struck her, one hand going to her stomach in an unconscious protective gesture that he wouldn't understand until much later. "You're lying," she whispered. "You have to be lying." "I'm not." She stood there for a long moment, tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. Then she wiped her eyes, lifted her chin, and looked at him with a dignity that humbled him. "I won't beg you to stay. I won't fight for someone who doesn't want me. But I need you to know something, Minjai." She moved to the door, pausing with her hand on the frame. "When you realize what you've done, when you understand what you've thrown away, there will be no coming back from this. Some mistakes can't be unmade." She walked out of the room, and he heard the bedroom door close softly behind her. No slamming, no screaming, just a quiet acceptance that carved out his chest and left him hollow. The divorce was finalized in 6 weeks, a record for a high-profile case. Amara signed the papers without reading them, refused the settlement money, and asked for only one thing: her freedom and her maiden name back. The media had a field day. "Kang Minjai divorces foreign wife," the headline screamed. "Billionaire CEO returns to Korean roots." The narrative wrote itself. The poor black girl who'd married above her station, finally exposed as incompatible with Korean high society. Minjai saw the articles, read the cruel comments, watched as Amara's dignity was shredded in public forums. He should have defended her, should have told the truth. But he was already planning his next move, marrying Soo Jin in 3 months, just long enough for appearances, just fast enough to satisfy her demands. He didn't know Amara was pregnant, didn't know that the protective hand on her stomach hadn't been grief, but instinct. She discovered it 2 weeks after signing the divorce papers, staring at a positive pregnancy test in a bathroom at Incheon. Airport, waiting for her flight to New York. She could have told him, could have used the pregnancy to nullify the divorce, to force him to acknowledge his responsibility. But as she sat in that sterile bathroom, her hand on her still flat belly, Amara made a choice. Her son would never watch her beg a man who'd thrown her away. 4 years passed, like a wound slowly scarring over. Amara rebuilt her life in Brooklyn, returning to the art world she'd abandoned. She started small, freelance consulting, writing gallery reviews, gradually building back her reputation. The pregnancy was difficult, made harder by her loneliness and the whispers that followed her, even across the ocean. The woman Kang Min-jae divorced, the foreigner who couldn't cut it in soul. But when her son was born, when she held that perfect tiny human with Min-jae's eyes and her nose, everything else faded to background noise. She named him Isaiah after her grandfather. No Korean name, no acknowledgement of the father who'd discarded them both. Isaiah Collins, American, whole, hers. Single motherhood was brutal. There were days when she survived on 3 hours of sleep and peanut butter sandwiches, when Isaiah's daycare costs meant she couldn't afford new shoes, when the weight of doing it all alone crushed her so completely she cried in the shower to hide it from her son. But there were also moments of pure joy. Isaiah's first word, Mama, his first steps into her arms, his first drawing, a lopsided family of 2. She never told Min-jae, blocked his number, avoided Korean business news, built a life where he didn't exist except in the face of their child. Meanwhile, Min-jae's life became everything he'd supposedly wanted. He married Soo Jin in a lavish ceremony that made the society pages, merged their family businesses, expanded Kong Industries into Southeast Asian markets. From the outside, he had it all: wealth, power, a beautiful wife from an established family, respect from his peers. From the inside, he was dying slowly. Soo Jin revealed her true nature within months of the wedding. She was controlling, obsessed with social status, cruel to the staff. She criticized everything: his clothes, his colleagues, the way he ate, the time he spent at the office. She wanted a trophy husband, a business asset, not a partner. Their penthouse became a battlefield of passive aggression and icy silences. "You're thinking about her again," Sujin said one evening, finding him standing at the window where he'd once stood with Amara. The American. He didn't deny it. There was no point. She was nothing, Minjai. A nobody from nowhere. Why do you still waste thoughts on her? Because she was everything, he wanted to scream. Because she loved me when I had nothing, believed in me when I doubted myself, made this empty penthouse a home. Because I destroyed the best thing in my life for a woman who sees me as a business merger. But he said nothing, just poured another whiskey and wondered where Amara was, if she'd found someone worthy of her, if she ever thought of him. He had no idea he had a son learning to read, learning to tie his shoes, learning that his mother was strong enough to be both parents. The charity gala in Geneva was Sujin's idea. "Networking," she'd said. "The European market is expanding. We need visibility." Minjai had agreed, because it meant a week away from Seoul, from his suffocating marriage, from the constant reminder that he'd traded love for a prison of his own making. The event was held in a historic hotel overlooking Lake Geneva, attended by billionaires and philanthropists from around the world. Minjai had prepared his usual networking smile, his practiced small talk, his ability to discuss profit margins while appearing interested in humanitarian efforts. He was accepting a champagne flute from a waiter when he saw her. Amara stood near the terrace doors in a stunning emerald gown that complemented her skin, like it was designed specifically for her. Her hair was different, shorter, more sophisticated, and there was a confidence in her posture that hadn't been there before. She was speaking with a European gallery owner, laughing at something he said, and Minjai's world tilted on its axis. 4 years. 4 years of convincing himself he'd made the right choice, that Amara had been a beautiful mistake, that he was better off without her. 4 years of lies that evaporated the moment he saw her smile. Then a small boy ran up to her, wrapping his arms around her legs. She bent down, kissing his forehead, adjusting his little bow tie with a tenderness that stopped Minjai's heart. The boy had his eyes, his exact eyes. The champagne flute slipped from Minjai's fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Heads turned, including Amara's. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom, and he watched her freeze, watched the color drain from her face, watched her instinctively pull her son closer. Time seemed to stop. Everything he'd believed about the past 4 years, that he'd moved on, that she was in America living her best life, that the divorce had been painful but necessary, shattered like the glass at his feet. She had a child. Their child. He knew it with a certainty that defied logic. Amara recovered first, scooping up the boy and heading for the exit. Minjai moved without thinking, pushing through the crowd, ignoring Sujin's sharp call of his name, focused only on reaching her before she disappeared. He caught her at the elevator bank, his hand on her arm. "Amara, wait!" She spun around, her eyes flashing with fury and fear. "Let go of me! Please, just..." He looked down at the boy, who was watching him with solemn dark eyes. "Please!" The boy tugged on Amara's dress. "Mama? Who is this man?" "Mama." The word hit him like a freight train. "No one, baby," Amara said, her voice gentle despite the tension vibrating through her body. "Just someone Mama used to know." "Is he?" Minjai couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't voice the question burning through him. Amara's jaw tightened. "Not here, not now." "Then where? When?" His voice broke. "Amara, please. I need to know." She looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she wrote something on a business card and handed it to him. "My hotel. Tomorrow at noon. Come alone, or don't come at all." The elevator doors opened, and she stepped inside with their son. The last thing Minjai saw before the doors closed was the boy waving at him, innocent and unaware that he was looking at the father who didn't know he existed. Minjai didn't sleep that night. He sat in his hotel room staring at Amara's business card, at the elegant script that read, Amara Collins, independent art consultant. No Kang. She'd erased him completely. Soo-jin raged when he told her he was meeting with Amara. That woman again. After everything I did to get rid of her, you're actually seeking her out? The words registered slowly. What do you mean, everything you did? Soo-jin's expression shifted, became cautious. Nothing. I mean nothing. But Minjai was done with lies. Tell me the truth. What did you do? The story came out in pieces, reluctant admissions forced by his cold fury. Soo-jin had orchestrated everything, manufactured the documents that supposedly proved illegal activity, created false evidence of bribery, used her family's connections to make the threat seem credible. There had never been real blackmail material, just an elaborate con to force Minjai into divorcing Amara and marrying her instead. I loved you, Soo-jin said, as if that justified destroying lives. I wanted you back. I did what I had to do. Minjai looked at the woman he'd sacrificed everything for and felt nothing but disgust. I want a divorce. You can't. I can. I will. Get out of my sight. He was at Amara's hotel at 11:30 the next morning, unable to wait another minute. She answered his, Nock wearing jeans and a sweater, no makeup, looking tired and beautiful, and so far beyond his reach, it hurt to breathe. You're early, she said. I couldn't wait. Is he? Isaiah is with my friend. We're alone. She stepped back, letting him enter. You have questions. Ask them. Is he mine? Yes. The simple answer destroyed him. Why didn't you tell me? Amara moved to the window, her arms wrapped around herself. Why would I? You made it clear you didn't want me. You made it clear our marriage was a mistake. What was I supposed to do, Minjai? Show up pregnant and beg you to love me again? Force you to stay out of obligation? I had a right to know. You had a right to nothing. She spun around, tears streaming down her face. You divorced me. You stood in our home and told me you didn't love me anymore. You let the media destroy my reputation, let them call me a gold digger and worse, and you said nothing. You erased 5 years of marriage like it meant nothing. So tell me, what right did you think you earned? He wanted to explain about Soo-jin's blackmail, about his fear, about the impossible choice he thought he was making, but the words felt hollow now. I thought I was protecting you. Protecting me? From what? Soo-jin had evidence, documents that would have destroyed Kang Industries, sent me to prison. She said if I didn't divorce you and marry her, she'd go public. Amara stared at him. So you sacrificed our marriage to save your company. It wasn't just the company. It was 3,000 employees, families who depended on you being a coward? Her voice was cold now, analytical. Did you verify these documents? Consult a lawyer? Investigate her claims? Or did you just accept her word and throw away your wife like garbage? He had no answer because they both knew the truth. He'd been scared, and he'd taken the path of least resistance. The documents were fake, he admitted. There was never any real blackmail. Soo-jin manufactured everything to get me back. Amara laughed, a broken sound that made him flinch. So you divorced me for nothing. You destroyed our marriage, my reputation, my trust, for absolutely nothing. I'm sorry. God, Amara, I'm so sorry. Sorry? She moved closer, her eyes blazing. Do you know what the last 4 years have been like? Do you have any idea? I was pregnant and alone in a foreign country. I worked 3 jobs while going through morning sickness. I gave birth by myself because I had no family here, no support system. I've raised our son on my own. Sleepless nights, sick days, every milestone and challenge alone. because you decided I wasn't worth fighting for. I'll fix it. I'll fix everything. I'm divorcing Sujin. I'll marry you again, give you everything. Acknowledge Isaiah publicly. Whatever you need, I don't need anything from you. The words were quiet, final, and they shattered him more completely than anything else she could have said. Please, he whispered, sinking to his knees before her. Please, Amara. I love you. I never stopped loving you. I was weak and stupid, and I made the worst mistake of my life. But I love you. I love our son. Give me a chance to make this right. She looked down at him with an expression that was somehow worse than anger, pity mixed with profound sadness. You want to make it right? Here's how you make it right. You sign legal documents acknowledging Isaiah as your son. You set up a trust fund for his future. You be a father to him, consistent, present, reliable. And you let me go. No, I can't. You can, and you will. She stepped back, putting distance between them. I survived you destroying me once, Minjai. I won't give you the chance to do it again. I rebuilt my life from nothing. I learned that I don't need a man to validate my worth, that I am enough on my own, that I can be both mother and father to my child if necessary. Our child. My child. Who I will allow you to know, because he deserves a father. But I won't be part of that equation. You'll have access to Isaiah. Supervised at first, then we'll see. But not to me. Never to me again. He wanted to argue, to fall at her feet and beg until she relented. But looking at her now, at the strength she'd forged from his betrayal, he understood that begging would only insult her further. Can I meet him? Properly? She considered this. Tomorrow. I'll bring him to the park near here at 2 o'clock. You can tell him who you are. But Minjai? Her voice hardened. If you hurt him, if you disappoint him, if you prove to be as unreliable a father as you were a husband, I will cut you out of our lives completely. Lawyers, restraining orders, whatever it takes. He's my priority. Not you, not your feelings, not your regrets. Him. Only him. I understand. She walked to the door, opening it. Goodbye, Minjai. Amara, wait. He stood, desperate. Is there really no chance? In the future, after I've proven myself, could we? No. She met his eyes steadily. You taught me an important lesson when you divorced me. You taught me that I deserve someone who chooses me first, every time without hesitation. You taught me that love without courage is worthless. You taught me that I am strong enough to walk away from someone who doesn't value what we had. She smiled sadly. Thank you for that lesson. It was painful, but it made me who I am now. And who I am now would never take you back. The door closed between them with a soft click that sounded like the end of the world. The meeting in the park the next day was simultaneously the best and worst moment of Minjai's life. Isaiah was shy at first, hiding behind Amara's legs, but he gradually warmed up when Minjai asked about the toy car he was holding. It's a race car, Isaiah explained solemnly. Mama got it for me when I learned all my numbers to 20. That's very impressive. You must be very smart. Mama says I get it from her, Isaiah said matter-of-factly, and Minjai caught Amara's small smile. They sat on a park bench while Isaiah played nearby, close enough to watch, but far enough to give them privacy. He's incredible, Minjai said, unable to take his eyes off his son. He is. He looks like me. Unfortunately. There was no venom in her voice, just tired acceptance. Amara, don't. She cut him off gently. We're not doing this. We're here so you can meet your son. That's all. They sat in silence, watching Isaiah chase pigeons, his laughter bright and pure. Does he ask about his father? Minjai finally asked. Sometimes. I told him his father lived far away and couldn't be here, but that it wasn't because he didn't love him. She glanced at Minjai. I've never said anything bad about you to him. That's not the kind of mother I am. You're an amazing mother. I know. The quiet confidence in her voice humbled him. This was the woman who'd once doubted herself, who'd asked his opinion on everything, who'd looked to him for validation. She'd grown into someone who knew her worth, and he'd lost the right to witness that transformation. Over the next 6 months, Min-jae flew to wherever Amara and Isaiah were, New York, London, Paris, for weekly visits with his son. Each meeting was supervised, professional, carefully boundaried. He learned that Isaiah loved dinosaurs and hated broccoli, that he wanted to be an astronaut when he grew up, that he had his mother's kindness and his father's stubbornness. And each meeting, he watched Amara from a distance, watched her laugh with Isaiah, watched her live a full life that no longer included him. She dated, she told him once when he asked, a gallery owner in Brooklyn who treated her well, who respected her art, who had Sunday brunch with her and Isaiah. Does Isaiah like him? Min-jae asked, hating the jealousy burning through him. Isaiah likes anyone who's kind to him and his mother, Amara replied. That's what matters. Min-jae divorced Soo-jin publicly, exposing her manipulation in a carefully worded statement that destroyed her socially, but stopped short of legal action. He acknowledged Isaiah as his son, set up trust funds and college accounts, flew across oceans for bedtime stories and scraped knees. He became the father he should have been from the beginning. But he never became Amara's husband again. 3 years after that meeting in Geneva, Min-jae sat in the audience of Isaiah's elementary school in Brooklyn, watching his 7-year-old son play a tree in the school play. Amara sat 3 seats down with her boyfriend, fiancé now, he'd learned, and they looked happy, comfortable, complete. After the play, Isaiah ran up to both of them, and Min-jae felt the knife twist as he watched his son hug the other man first, calling him Uncle David. Did you see me, Daddy? I was the best tree. You were the best tree I've ever seen, Min-jae assured him, pulling his son into a hug and breathing in his little boy smell of grass and sunshine. Amara approached with David, her hand tucked into his arm. Isaiah, go get your backpack. We're going for ice cream. Can Daddy come? Isaiah asked hopefully. Not tonight, baby. Daddy has a flight to catch. I can change it, Min-jae said quickly. I can stay. Amara's look was patient but firm. Min-jae. No. He nodded, defeated. Right, of course. He kissed Isaiah's forehead. I'll call you tomorrow, buddy. Love you. Love you too, Daddy. As Isaiah ran off, Min-jae found himself standing awkwardly with Amara and David. The other man was annoyingly perfect. Kind eyes, good job, clearly adored both Amara and Isaiah. I should go, Min-jae said. Actually, Amara touched his arm lightly. I wanted to tell you something. David and I are getting married next month. The world tilted. Congratulations. Thank you. It'll be small, just close friends and family. Isaiah will be there, of course. Of course. She hesitated, then said, gently, I wanted you to hear it from me. You're Isaiah's father. You deserve that respect. Respect. Not love, not longing, not regret. Just calm, gracious respect. Is he good to you? The question escaped before he could stop it. Amara's expression softened. He's very good to us. He chooses us first, every single time. He loves Isaiah like his own. He's patient and kind and steady. Everything I wasn't, Min-jae thought. Everything I should have been. I'm glad, he said, and meant it despite the agony. You deserve that. You always deserved that. She studied his face for a moment, and he saw something flicker in her eyes. Not love, maybe, but a kind of gentle closure. I forgive you, she said quietly. For what it's worth, I forgive you for the divorce, for the lies, for everything. Not because you've earned it through the visits, or the money, or being a good father to Isaiah, but because I refuse to carry anger anymore. I'm happy, Min-jae, really, truly happy, and I hope, someday, you find that too. She squeezed his arm once, then walked away to join David and Isaiah, her family, leaving Minjai standing alone in the emptying school auditorium. That night, in his hotel room, Minjai poured a glass of whiskey and stood at the window overlooking Brooklyn. Somewhere out there, Amara was tucking Isaiah into bed, reading him stories, being the amazing mother she'd become without him. Somewhere out there, she was planning a wedding to a man who'd proven worthy of her. And he was here, in another anonymous hotel room in another city, having built an empire, but lost everything that mattered. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother. "When are you coming home to Seoul? When will you remarry? Give me grandchildren?" He almost laughed. He had a son, a beautiful, brilliant boy. But because of his own cowardice and pride, half his family didn't even know Isaiah existed. His mother had never met her grandson because Minjai couldn't bear to explain how he'd destroyed his first marriage. Another message, this one from his assistant. Board meeting Tuesday. They want to discuss succession planning. Succession. Legacy. The empire he'd chosen over love. Minjai opened his laptop and began typing. Not a business email, but something else. Words he'd never said properly. Truths he'd never fully acknowledged. "Dear Amara, you'll never read this. I'll never send it. But I need to write it anyway. Need to finally be honest about what I threw away. I lost the woman who loved me when I had nothing because I wanted everything. I lost the partner who believed in me before the world did because I was too cowardly to fight for her. I lost the mother of my child because I convinced myself that power mattered more than love. You were right that day in Geneva. Some mistakes can't be unmade. This is mine, permanent, irreversible, the defining failure of my life. I watch you now, happy and whole, and I'm glad. You deserve that joy. Isaiah deserves the stable, loving home you've built. But God, Amara, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to choose you. I'm sorry I let fear make my decisions. I'm sorry our son will grow up calling another man dad, while I'm the weekend father who flies in for school plays. I tell myself that being in Isaiah's life is enough, that I should be grateful you let me have even this much. Most days, I even believe it. But late at night, in hotel rooms across the world, I remember what we had. I remember your laugh, your touch, the way you made our apartment feel like home. I remember dancing in the kitchen, planning our future, believing we could conquer anything together. I had it all, and I threw it away for a threat that wasn't even real. This is my punishment, and it's fair. You moved on. You found someone worthy. You built a life that doesn't need me. And I'm here, emperor of an empire that feels like ash, loving a woman I'll never have again, father to a son who barely knows me. This is the price of my choices. This is what it costs to value power over people. I just wanted you to know, even if you'll never read this, that I understand now. I understand that I had everything when I had you. I understand that no amount of wealth or success will ever fill the hole you left. I understand that regret is the most expensive price of all. I hope he makes you happy. I hope Isaiah grows up secure and loved. I hope you live the beautiful life you always deserved. And I hope that somewhere, somehow, you know that losing you was the greatest mistake I'll ever make. All my love, always. Minjai. He read it once, then deleted it. Some words were meant only for the darkness, for the empty hours when truth couldn't be avoided. His phone buzzed again. A photo from Amara. Isaiah asleep in his bed, clutching the dinosaur stuffed animal Minjai had bought him, a small smile on his face. The text read, "He wanted you to know he's dreaming about the space museum you're taking him to next month." Sleep. Well, it was a kindness she didn't owe him, a small grace that acknowledged his place in their son's life while maintaining her boundaries. Minjai saved the photo, added it to the album of Isaiah pictures that had become his most precious possession. Then he turned off his phone, finished his whiskey, and tried to sleep, knowing he'd dream of a woman walking away in an emerald dress, whole and unbroken, leaving him exactly where his choices had put him. Alone. If this story moved you, if Amara's strength inspired you, or Minjai's regret struck a chord, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story about love, loss, and the choices that define us. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in Amara's position. And if you believe in the power of choosing yourself first, give this video a like. These stories exist because of you, and I'm grateful for every single person who takes this journey with me. Until next time, remember, some mistakes can't be unmade, but healing is always possible. Choose wisely. Choose love. Choose yourself.